Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Magazine. For this September 18th, 2019, you have James J. Maloff in for Carl Hilke today, and we are joined by our own Mayor, Zach Vruwink, right now. Mayor, good morning to you.
Good morning, James.
I want to also say good morning to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, Kevin and our new friend Joe. Good to meet you guys. Thanks a lot for being here today. And I understand that we're also going to have some more guests at the second break.
Yes, we've got a couple of youth council members joining us.
So we'll get some brains in here. That's great.
That's right, exactly
something
right.
like that.
Gender balance, I think. I think we've got some female members from Assumption that are going to be joining. So nothing else at gender balance.
So how are you doing, Mayor? How's things been? Good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fall week out there so far this week, which is nice. It's a reprieve from last week's deluge of rain. I don't think we need any more rain for a little while anyway. Hopefully the weather can cooperate and dry some things out. With
school, we have these makeup days because of the school cancellations from the snow and everything. I kind of feel like summer's doing that for us. Like we're getting some extra summer days because of some of the crummy days we had during summer and everything.
Let's hope so.
Summer's in overtime a little bit here.
That's right.
I understand that there's a new municipality magazine out that you were showing us. It looks great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful front cover because the city of Wisconsin Rapids was featured on this month's edition of The Municipality, which is a magazine that gets distributed by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities to the 600 cities and villages around the state, as well as many of the state representatives. I think the entire state legislature gets a copy, as well as the governor's office and everybody else. So it's really a great feature for the city of Wisconsin Rapids. We actually, I was sharing before the show that they didn't want a landscape. They didn't want a beautiful image of the riverfront or anything. They wanted people. So they found the photo of a parade float that we had for the Aquatic Center back for probably 2 years ago, I believe, the Cranberry Blossom Festival parade.
Excellent.
So it's pretty neat exposure for the city and our efforts. There was a feature article that I wrote for the edition this month around recreation and the city's efforts to continue to add recreational opportunities and highlight its recreational assets, like the riverfront, as well as downtown redevelopment that the city has undertaken in the last number of years. So it was a really cool opportunity to go dive a little bit deeper for folks that don't know a lot about Wisconsin Rapids, as I've gotten feedback from people, wow, I didn't realize that about Wisconsin Rapids. I didn't know that some of these things were happening. So really, again, a great opportunity to showcase the city on a statewide basis to our peers, my peers in the cities and villages space, as well as folks that are at the policymaking level in the state legislature or in Madison.
Well, so much of it seems like every other guest I have in that chair over there. I was talking with Mary Walasek about this and Terry Johns. There are so many different things available, programs and different, but people just don't know about them. So, that's the importance of magazines like that, of shows like this, that kind of thing, getting that word out there. And I also put it on people to spread the word themselves, especially if they know somebody that a certain thing will fit them. So a little bit of that, just kind of spreading the word about. So I understand that you had a city council meeting yesterday.
We did, yeah. We had our monthly city council meeting, and there were a number of items that were on our agenda last night for this month's meeting. The first of which was to take care of a vacancy that we had in District 2. The District 2 seat was vacated due to a resignation, and the council had actually 5 applicants for that position. So it was really nice to see a diverse amount of applicants, both in gender, male, female applicants, as well as in experience, both those that were very inexperienced with city government and those that were very experienced that had either served on the city council, former mayor in one case, and so there was a very long election process because of we had 6 members of the council present, one due to the vacancy as well as one absence, and so we had to vote a number of times to narrow the field down and to select a candidate. So ultimately, the council appointed Vernon Virginski, which is a familiar name to many people, blast from the past. Bud was the mayor for a number of years and had served the city in the Department of Public Works in a variety of capacities. He worked out at the airport as the airport manager and a number of other contributions to the city. So the council appointed him last night through a very, again, extensive election process. There must have been 5 or 6 rounds of voting last night.
Had to work for that one.
They did. Yeah, he did. Yep.
When it comes to certainly somebody like him that you weren't necessarily running against, it might be a little different to be able to talk to or anything. But I know that with the elections before that it can get a little heated when you're in the election when you're running against somebody and everything. Afterwards, have you been able to reach out or talk to former mayors or anything like that when you've had questions? We just had, not even so much questions as just bouncing ideas off of people and everything.
Yeah, in fact, Bud, namely, was somebody that I have connected with on a number of occasions. He'll come in, we'll have conversations about his view on either whether it's the city itself or, in his case, there was some real specific public works things he was very interested and passionate about that I should have known, and fortunately I did, and it was a good conversation. But yeah, I stay connected with all the former mayors, at least that I've connected with, at least the most 3 recent ones. And so it's been exciting from that standpoint. But in terms of the council last night, I think what was interesting is in a lot of council member races, there aren't contests, that some seats go uncontested, but we had 5 individuals that were willing to put their name in a hat, basically, or apply to be appointed to the position. So the vacancy or the appointment is actually only through the spring election. So folks that are interested in running for that seat can officially start circulating papers in December for the spring election. So it's a short-term vacancy, an appointment, and I would expect that at least one of those candidates that threw their name in the hat would run for the seat in the spring. And again, just great amount of interest in serving our city, which is really assuring to me that I'm not alone, that there are many passionate folks that care about our city that want to either serve on the city council or in another capacity.
I remember being out in Santa Barbara and talking to the assistant mayor at the time about something similar to this, and that they were having a hard time getting people to want to be on the city council. And that's, Santa Barbara, California, it's one of the most beautiful cities you could ask for. But people just didn't care, basically. And so that to hear something like that immediately, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, that is a great sign. That is really good to see people caring so much that they want to be a part of this so much. And even to go through the election process, like you said, coming up here and everything, they're willing to do that because they care about this city, care about what's going on here.
That's right. Yeah,
and they want to add to it. They want to make to it. So with that, I know that that you guys had plenty of other things going on last night too with the meeting.
We did. So the council in recent months changed the ordinance to add a city council member, an alderperson, to the Waterworks and Lighting Commission. Historically, they were appointments that the council made, and last night they elected a member to the Waterworks and Lighting Commission, which would be Scott Kellogg, alderperson Scott Kellogg. And so residents that may be passionate about an issue on waterworks and lighting can reach out to Scott. He'll be the city's representative or city council representative on that commission. And so what will basically happen is the current member that's up will cycle off, and then the alderperson will be seated on that commission, I believe in October. I think October 1st is when the seat opens up.
So what is the Waterworks and Lighting Commission? What is that exactly?
So the commission is basically what the city has divested its authority in to run the affairs of the electric and water side of our utilities. So the city actually does divest almost all of the policy making. The only thing that they retain is the budgetary or monetary control. So when the commission submits a budget to the city and the city council adopts that budget, and they'll be doing that this fall. And so as the media and others have reported, there was a rate case and there will be rate increases from the water utility, and the commission is ultimately the group that decides whether or not they want to change policy or in this case raise utility rates. And so that's a body that the mayor and myself nor alderpersons previously had any direct say or authority in. And so by changing the ordinance and adding an alderperson to the commission, there will be representation and a direct link between the City Council and the Waterworks and Lighting Commission.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for explaining that. That's breaking that down for us. So I understand that there's also urban forestry grants available for people?
Yes. So after the July 20th storm event, the city was contacted by the DNR and encouraged to apply for a catastrophic storm grant for urban forestry efforts. And so we applied the council approved an application last night for $50,000 to the DNR for urban forestry renewal efforts. So tree replanting, some restoration work in the parks. And the plan is to use that fund as a seed fund for an ultimate tree replacement and replanting program. And so that won't happen until the spring, but we've submitted our application. I think in the application we had accounted for over 400 trees that the city had lost itself. So really substantial devastation to the urban forestry program and really the tree canopy within the city. So that's a grant we want to make folks aware of. Related to that, but separate, is that some residents have stepped forward wanting to establish some tree replanting efforts in Robinson Park and some of the other parks that have experienced tree loss. The zoo over the years, whether it was from storm events or oak wilt or the emerald ash borer, we've really had a lot of detriments to our urban forestry over the years. So working with some citizens, and a former resident has now pledged $10,000 to that initiative, and so we're going to be contacting other donors to help match that gift. Ultimately, that program will help offset the costs of residents replanting trees, not only in parks, but also on their properties, too. Right. So really excited about that.
As somebody who has some of my favorite, only childhood memories at Robinson Park, I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. And it was actually where I was going to go next, was asking how that's going, how that is. Kind of answered the question there. Sure. Things are maybe not moving where we want they're moving where we want them to. Maybe not as fast as we want them to, but they're getting there.
Right. Certainly the cleanup effort continues in Robinson. It's going to into the fall and probably into winter. As it relates to the storm event itself, we've continued to stay in touch with FEMA. It sounds like we're going to be eligible for everything that we've talked about, provided it meets FEMA guidelines. And we're treating stumps the right way. We're disposing of wood the right way. And so we'll have more on that in terms of numbers as we go forward, but we're still gathering the actual costs of what it's going to take to completely restore these properties after the storm event. And so that's welcome news because, as we've talked, we haven't been able to do nearly as much of street maintenance and other activities because of the storm event. Yeah. And we'll be able to, if we can recover some of the labor costs as well as the overtime costs, we can then look to apply those funds to next year's budget and carry those over for some additional street maintenance activities that we weren't able to get to this year.
I want to remind everybody that the phone lines are wide open at 424-2600. If you have a question for the mayor, please give us a call. I suppose if you had a question for Kevin or Joe, that would work fine, but they don't have a microphone. So
we should introduce Joe, though, because Joe's new.
Yeah, I did want to introduce Joe. Yes, Joe, so we do have a new guy
people
here.
Can't see him, but Joe Bachman, who previously was a writer here in the city for a publication that folks probably remember, and so we're pleased to have Joe join the community media staff at the city, bring his writing talents, social media knowledge, and really communication skills to the city. So we're excited to have Joe join the team. So it's new now with Andy and Kevin and Joe to have a new team over at Community Media. Travis left to join the police department, so he didn't go far. He went across the street basically to City Hall to work for the city police department.
Yeah, he's doing some good work for us, and they all are actually. We got great people here with that. I wanted to make sure to bring this up too, though, because I had a question about this. The the disaster recovery microloans that are now available.
Right.
Can you explain that to us? Because I had a couple listeners asking about that. They weren't too sure what that exactly is and what it applies for and that.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the program you're talking about with Regional Planning Commission, North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. So that they made available some microloans to small businesses or businesses in general that might have faced some devastating losses, whether it was if they were underinsured, maybe from a business continuity standpoint. Restaurants, for example, when we had power outage, they had major spoilage, so they lost, if not all, most of their food supply. So the business disaster micro loans are great because if somebody had, another uninsured or non-coverable loss, so if they lost trees, but they didn't fall on a structure. Well, insurance companies are generally not going to cover that loss or that cleanup. So if there's a major financial burden involved, the microloans allow, I believe it's 0% interest for a small amount to be able to help recover the costs or to afford the payments basically on the cleanup costs that were associated with the storm event. And so folks can find that information. We posted a bit on the city website, but it's I would suggest people go directly to the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. It's their website would have the microloan information, and it's a great program, again, available to businesses who experienced loss that was not necessarily insurable or covered by a private insurance policy.
With these kind of things, there's that gray area a lot of times, and it's great to have things like that available for not only businesses, but just people in general, and it helps our whole area, so that's really good. Yep. Speaking of helping our area, I trying to get some questions and some ideas from, what listeners are thinking out there and everything, because I don't want it to just be me asking questions, so I asked around, and a number of people had brought up the sponsor, the solar powerhouse, that Wood County is a sponsor of this. And I've heard more and more people, especially since the storm, being interested in solar power. And some people that, to be quite honest, I would have never guessed would have any interest in it whatsoever. I got a couple of friends of mine who are your very stereotypical Wisconsinite, the hunter, all these different things, and they are very interested by it. And it kind of came up in conversation, and then when I was on the city website, I saw this about the sponsorship, and it just, I was like, oh, well, there we go. And so I wanted to ask you about this a bit.
Yeah, so Wisconsin Rapids was one of the first municipalities in central Wisconsin, was the first in Wood County to become Sol Smart designated. And it's a Department of Energy program, a U.S. Department of Energy program, that helps communities like Wisconsin Rapids work through its zoning codes to make sure that Sol Smart ordinances are friendly. So if somebody does want to go solar, that it's done so in a way that the path is very clear. So it's not like, well, this is a gray area and I need somebody to interpret the zoning code and you can't do this, you can do this. So we really wanted to clarify that. So that was probably 3 years ago now. We became gold designated. I know Wood County is making its way through that certification process. Grand Rapids, a number of the other municipalities in our area are working through it. And it really has already paid dividends. There's a number of solar installations that have happened in the city under the new zoning requirements that really clarified, again, the rules of what you can and can't do when it comes to solar installations. And so that's on the city side, right? And we just got done talking about Waterworks and Lighting Commission. Because we own our own municipal electric utility, there's a connection there involved, right? And in Wisconsin, there's some unique legislation that I would say is a bit onerous to folks that want to go solar. And it's not a city ordinance or a utility regulation, or a local utility regulation, but a statewide regulation, that there have to be these agreements that, from a power purchasing standpoint, that complicate things a bit. And so I think there's more work to be done on the state level. But the nice thing is, at the local level, we've got our bases covered, that if someone wants to go solar, we've made it easy or easier than what it used to be to do so. I know a lot of companies will provide a free or a reduced cost, I think they're all free, solar site survey. I had one done on my house because I was very curious. Can I have solar panels on my house? Well, there's some trees nearby, and it's probably not going to offer as much of a payback as if it were completely exposed to the sun. So interesting bit of information that I think if residents are curious, they can contact some of these companies. I'd direct them to the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. They've got a nice list of the solar companies in the area, and really from an economic development standpoint, that's where we looked at the Sol Smart piece from, is Mid-State Technical College, that they've got a program right here in the city that if we can get more folks going solar or adopting additional renewable technologies, it's an economic development benefit to us. We've got small businesses now that are hiring recent graduates that are now providing services right here in the community. And so it's really exciting, I think, and that takes us to something that I should highlight is that, and if we haven't talked about it on air, I want to make sure I do, and that's Mid-State's first solar charging station here in the city. So if folks have a electric vehicle, they can pull right up to Mid-State and get a free charge on their electric vehicle. So a lot of ways I think that Wisconsin Rapids can be proud of being very solar friendly. And obviously there's environmental benefits, but there's economic benefits, both to the economy, but also to the individual, that eventually they'll be able to be off the grid.
That you hit on two really good points there, sir, about the certainly the environmental thing. That certainly is something I think almost everybody understands now in this day and age in 2019. there is a huge benefit economically to this and to going solar, not just as a local, as a you and your own land or anything, but businesses. We've seen Macmillan Library go that way. There's a number of, and it's also one of those things where it's only going that way. We're not going backwards. We're not going to start using coal anytime soon. I mean, a lot of these different, so we have to adapt to these things, whether even if you don't want to necessarily, and that's different as far as like personal businesses or, that kind of thing. But to not adapt, to hold back, it's part of how we got in this, a lot of cities get in trouble in the first place, is kind of holding on to these old ways. And as great as they may be, or as much as you may love them, they're not going to be there much longer. Time only moves forward. We've talked about this before in a sense, and this is a stretch here, but I was talking about this with Mary too, with the dog park. That it seems like, well, it's a dog park. What's the big deal? Well, every city that is growing, and you look at the numbers throughout the whole country, every city that is growing is dog friendly, and people want to live in cities that are dog friendly. People move out of cities that aren't dog friendly. So having a dog park may not seem like a very big idea, but economically, it's a really good idea because it keeps people in the area, keeps people coming to the area, things like that. So it all ties together with a lot of this stuff, with the solar power, with dog parks, all these different things.
That's right.
And I know that you and so many of us are excited about 2020, and that it's going to be we've already begun this, but it's really a huge showing of where we've been going with all these projects and the changes and stuff. It doesn't stop there. It's only growing from there. It's great and everything's wonderful that we have set up for 2020, but there's more to be done and there's more to go.
And I think it's from an environmental or a sustainability standpoint, from a public entity, it's all taxpayer dollars, and the more efficient that we can become with the use of those dollars that also perhaps have an environmental benefit, all the better. And so I think one of the forums that's actually coming up here in a couple of weeks, I believe it's the first Thursday in October, is a climate and sustainability forum that's being co-hosted at the library and I'm a participant on a panel alongside UW Extension with Nancy from Wood County Extension, the county board chair, Doug Mahan, who's talked a lot about solar himself and made that a real focus of his tenure as county board chair. And so we're all going to be talking about what our municipalities are doing to become more economically friendly when it comes to the budget side of things, but also environmentally. And so we invite folks to come to that forum. I think it's Thursday night, the first Thursday in October. At the library, and so it's going to be exciting to be able to highlight some of these things. We've got efforts from our wastewater treatment facilities to our stormwater management that all, again, we're trying to achieve a triple benefit. That if we can afford taxpayer savings, we can use those resources in a different place, hopefully to deliver more services. And I think it's just really an exciting time for all those efforts because it's become more mainstream and more kind of a central focus in that regard.
We're speaking with Mayor Zach Vruwink again, and I want to remind you all that the phone lines are open at 715-424-2600. We'll take a break in a second here and bring the Youth Council in. Before we do that, I was going to ask this later, but since what you just said, that you've joined another committee and everything, when do you have time to breathe? When do you have time to do it? Do you have hobbies? I mean,
you have to have great time management skills, let me tell you, because there are no less than 25 projects and priorities that I've got on a whiteboard in my office that I'm working on. And how do I sleep? I don't know sometimes. I can't say that I always get the best sleep, but you really have to have time management. And I tell you, when you're passionate about a community and you know you've got a limited amount of time to be able to make an impact, that's the best motivator, that I've only got a chance to be mayor for a finite amount of time. And so, while it's a really incredible honor, you've got to do something with that time. So
I completely agree. And I almost bring it up so that a lot of my friends hear that so that they get off my case. Because I work 3 jobs. I'm constantly busy. Yeah. But I like what I do. I enjoy what I do. So when you
comes at the expense of personal relationships, though, right?
Yes.
It's hard to keep up with people and keep in touch.
Yeah.
I've got a sister that's ready to have her first child, and so last night at 10 to 10, we were at Culver's grabbing custard because it was literally the only time I could see her because I don't know when that baby's going to come. And so, we just make time for those things.
And it's important to be able to do that too, because the balance of that is hard to always find too.
Yes.
But I hear you. I haven't had a social life in about 3-4 years, so I know what you mean. We have a call coming in. Let's go ahead and take it. Good morning. You're on with the mayor.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. The question I have is, with the new water park, is there future plans for enclosing that to make it a year-round water park or not?
So there wouldn't be a structure that could be constructed over the facility. I'm not to say that it's not possible, but it's not in the plan to do so, because the plan really involves a lot of other year-round activities around the facility as well. So while right now there is no plan, and the city council believe that with the two existing indoor facilities, one that's being constructed, which is the YMCA, which will have a competitive lap pool and a number of other aquatics amenities, but also the high school, that there were ample year-round indoor facilities that exist in the community.
Thanks a lot for the call. Good question, sir. And I was immediately thinking the same thing with the YMCA opening up soon here too. That will definitely be something available for people that during the winter hours.
Yeah, and it's a very different program when you enclose something in terms of the maintenance and the cost to operate, because you're treating air in addition to the water and all the upkeep there. So, and I just think many municipalities, there's very few municipalities that operate indoor facilities. There are some, but again, they come at a substantial cost, and generally it's in joint partnership with the school district or another entity like the YMCA.
Speaking with Mayor Zach Vruwink, and a big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media as well for joining us. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have the Youth Council with us and more on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Magazine for Part 2. On this September 18th, 2019, James Maloff in for Carl Hilke today. And not only are we joined by Wisconsin Rapids Community Media and our own Mayor Zach Vruwink, but right now we have the Youth Council in with us. And if you ladies wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, we'll just go down the line here.
I'm Allison Taylor. I'm a senior at Assumption High School.
I'm Claire Widmeyer. I'm also a senior at Assumption High School.
And Allison and Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't imagine how hard it was to leave school and come in here today. Thank you for doing that so much. What is one of the things about being on the Youth Council that you would tell people that are curious about doing this when they get to the age too and everything, that is a fun part about being a part of this? And we'll start with you.
I just love being on the council because it's such a great way to be involved in your community and to really, get to know the mayor more and just his job even, and just really seeing all of what goes on behind the scenes and getting to be a part of that. It really helps you think about the future and what you want to do, and it's really inspiring.
That's great. And Claire, how about you?
Kind of the same as Allison. I really like being a part of my community. It's really nice because this is my hometown. This is where I've always grown up. So to be able to give back to that and help out with the upcoming youth.
That's great, and very well said, both of you. Now, Mayor, for you, how vital is it to have this kind of feedback? They have this, not only whatever they have ideas and that kind of thing, but just having that youth around, that energy.
Well, it is inspiring. I think you just heard some of the reasons why I have a youth council, right? And that's the fact that when we didn't have one, there was that vacuum. There was a dead space really around youth priorities and youth initiatives. And I think while the group doesn't get involved deeply into the policy matters with the city, sort of leave that up to the city council and the city folks there and city officials, but they help advise. And I think I think the most inspiring thing to me is they round out the feedback loop that we should always, at city government or government in general, should always be inviting. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have public meetings and to have a few folks show up and be passionate, and that's great. But to have folks that wouldn't necessarily feel invited or feel comfortable showing up, their perspectives matter too. And I think especially when we think about the youth, that a community like Wisconsin Rapids, who had maybe prioritized other generations over the city's future and city youth, it was definitely a great opportunity to create the council, I think 6 years ago now, and to have a class every year come through the program from Lincoln and Assumption has been really cool and great.
Yeah. And it's so important too, because one of the things that you mentioned there is vital too, that we're going forward. And to hang on to the past or to just have a lot of old ideas isn't going to do anybody any good. So not only that, but this is the future right here. We may have a future mayor right here. We may have a future city council member, all that. And if the younger that they can get involved in these things and understanding them, the better they are going to be for everybody.
That's right.
And one of the things that I've appreciated about your term, what you've done in your terms, is doing a lot of that. Is not only, it's not enough to just have you can have coffee with the mayor and have a conversation, and that's great. But there's more to it than that. You have other times, any chance you get to really interact with the community, you've taken it and listened into it and everything.
That's right.
That goes so far, not only for people, because even if people aren't necessarily I bring this to you and it doesn't get done. Well, at least you heard me. And people want to be heard. And that goes a long way for a community, a long way for a people. When it comes to being on the youth council, what do you do on the youth council? Just if nobody's ever heard of it before and they're just starting out, do you guys have pizza parties? Do you meet once a week? Well, what exactly is the youth council? We can start with you, Allison, and I'll ask you in a second, Claire.
So the youth council, we meet about once a month. Sometimes, depending on our project, sometimes we've had to increase our meetings. Just really depends on what's going on. But so it's not a huge time commitment. It's just about an hour once a month. But then we get to work on different projects. So we're presented different projects, and we get to kind of pick what we want to do. And so obviously our main focus is how can we reach out to the youth. So like this past year, one of our projects was the movie night at Robinson Park. So we really just wanted a summer cool event that we can really bring the youth out and show that like they are a part of the community and like let's all do something together. So
that's really good. And that also shows too that it isn't just a title. It isn't just join the youth council and it's just something fun to be a part. You guys are doing work. You guys are actually doing really good things for our community and really come up with ideas and everything. And how is it I would ask you, Claire, but I feel like she kind of answered a little bit. I don't want to put you on the spot there. But Claire, I'll ask you this. How important is it for you guys to feel like you're being heard?
I find it really important because I have grown up here. I really want to give my opinion and my ideas. So I find it very important that the city's willing to listen.
And when it comes to coming up with these ideas with the other youth council members and everything, do you guys have fun doing this? Do you find yourselves working together well? It's going good?
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially with all of us wanting to go into like business things in city government. Then it can help us to work together with other people.
Oh, that's great. That's great. When you envisioned this, when this came about and everything, did you expect it to be this good? Like, I don't know how else necessarily to put that, but I mean, it seems like one of those things where it's a great idea, looks good on paper. Let's see how it goes,
Right.
And then you see, well, this is actually a lot better than even I could have thought it would be.
Yeah, I think like anything else, it requires extra effort, right? And I think people sometimes, everyone assumes what the role of the mayor is. That everything is the mayor's fault, or everything is the mayor's job, or the mayor can do this. And and this group has been great because they've been really engaged on making something happen, like not just gathering and kind of the fluff aspects of things, but really about demonstrating that this community has a future and showing their peers that they can be involved and make change. And I think myself as a young person, yourself as a young person, not all that long ago, in their shoes, that I'm not sure the city was listening. And I think when you just heard their feedback, I think it's validated. So yes, it's met the test. None of us expected it to. I mean, we hoped that it would.
Sure.
But we didn't realize that youth would apply, which is something we want to talk about here today, that they're stepping up, they're self-identifying, self-selecting to make a difference. We're not saying you have to be in this, sort of a sentence that they need to be involved, or their teachers telling them they must be involved. It's really it's a completely voluntary program, and to have any number of students, 20, 25 students every year for the last number of years, self-select and to be a part of this program is really met the test. And I think, yes, it's exceeded our expectations. Annually, I talk about this program to my peers, and because many cities don't have it, because one, it's an effort, and two, it's something else on top of all the other priorities that mayors or city or village presidents need to kind of way, and so not often does it get the attention that they'd like to give it to.
I could not encourage other mayors, other cities to do it more, though. I think that there's a national kind of idea of what a millennial is and all these different things, what younger people are doing and thinking. And that is a whole other category than what it sounds like what you've experienced. Most of my students at Second City are 16, 17, 18, early 20s, and they all want to step up. Every single one of them I have care about not just theater and acting and all of this, but politics. They care about the environment. They care about the economy, all these things. And for them to be able to do that, I know that especially talking with you off air and everything, it's something that we would have joined when we were young, when we were living in this town. Right. We would have been a part of the youth council. Just if anything, it means something to be heard. It really does. It doesn't end there. Stepping up involves more than that, and these guys understand that better than I do. But it means something to be heard. Yeah. So we brought you in today to talk about the youth council, and was there some other things that you wanted to bring up about bringing in new people?
So it's a new school year, right? These guys are just starting their school year, and so they like to talk a little bit about recruitment because we had 6 seniors leave us. They're off to their next steps in their lives, and so we've got 11 spots or so that we'd like to recruit and fill for the upcoming year. So that's basically what we're here to talk about. They can specifically talk about the application process if they wish, but basically the ask is to invite their peers or folks that might be listening that know high school students. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about why somebody should apply to join the Mayor's Youth Council, or what that process looks like, if either of you want to take that.
Sure.
I think that everyone should apply. It's such a wonderful opportunity that our city is giving us to apply to it. So to apply, it's just online. There's an online application, and you'll just need a couple reference letters, and it's really an easy application. But we want more people in our group so that we can have more ideas, and I'm sure that everyone that we have in our group right now really provides great ideas too. And a good asset to our group.
And most of our group right now is made up of seniors and juniors, so we do want the incoming freshmen and the sophomores to start putting their voice in there and start being a part of it, so then as we leave, then they can start taking it over and bring in new people as well.
That's very well said, both of you. Now, is there a test that you have to take to join? Do you have to take a math test or anything like that? No, nothing like that.
Application
that's
is
awesome.
super easy. It's
really?
It's on the city website. It's not too hard to really fill out, especially for what you get out of it. It's worth your time.
Have you guys found yourselves doing the recruiting with friends and asking them if they want to join?
Yes. So at school, this Monday, I believe it was, we went in front of assembly and we talked to our peers, and we've been at school trying to, get people motivated. Like, come on, come join. It's not hard. It's fun. We enjoy it, and you get to meet a lot of great people.
That's great. And I'm not sure I didn't get introduced to who was here. I'm just going to, you don't have to get on the mic, sir. I just wanted to make sure to give you your due. But I appreciate you joining us. It's something that not only do I get encouraged by hearing you guys talk, but just by the fact that we have this and that there's something like this in place. What you guys are doing is paving a lot of the way for the next youth and the next people, these new members that you want to join, the people that we want to join in 10 years from now, and that to have another youth council. So hopefully whoever the mayor is then will do something like this again, because they see the benefit of it, what it does for our community. Everybody should be heard. I mean, maybe not babies, but that is only that's just because they can't talk, really. It's only, and they don't really have a whole lot to say, to be honest with you. But really, it is an important thing to be able to hear from the youth, and so that goes a long way with that. And very well said, you two. Nicely done.
Nationally, it's said that young people don't participate, right? And I think one thing cities can do in this case, and I talk about it with my peers, is no better way to get somebody hooked on being an engaged citizen than when they're in high school. Oftentimes our programming is we're gonna teach local government in maybe the middle school or even earlier than that, and then we round out with some of the other branches of government throughout high school. And I think it's a missed opportunity if communities don't offer this type of program And so I'm very pleased that the City Council approved the concept back when it was created, and we're able to sustain it thus far. So we've got one of our advisors, Mr. Lynch, who's at Assumption in the studio with us today. He's one of our number of advisors we've got from both education and academics, as well as community and citizen members that help support the program. So it's been it doesn't require a big budget. That's the nice part about it.
Yeah.
It's very bootstrapped. It's very budget friendly of a program, but it really pays dividends, I think, to have this program. So they're going to be approaching project selection here very soon. So the application deadline is the end of September? Is that right?
Yes, I believe
September. And so the project selection is going to occur where they're going to figure out what they're going to work on for the next number of months throughout the upcoming school year.
And again, if people want to apply to the Youth Council, how do they do that again?
It's on the website. There's the application, and then you can fill out the application and just submit it. And it's super easy, and then you'll get your emails and notifications, and there you go.
Excellent. What you mentioned about the youth and this national kind of idea that they don't care or that they don't want to get involved in everything. It's interesting because seeing this connection between politics and what I do with theater, with radio, even with teaching in a way. I got into it with a number of my other teachers the other day because they were kind of complaining about people don't want to come to theater anymore and stuff. It's like, well, we need to make them want to come to theater. We can't, give them all these little incentives or, hey, we'll give you free pizza if you come to a show or something like that. I mean, that's all well and good, but that doesn't work very long. Give people a reason to want to come to theater. Give people a reason to want to be involved in politics, and give them the opportunity and see what happens. And you give this an opportunity, and look at the great things that are already happening with something like this. So the onus is on us to make this entertaining to them, to make them want to be a part of this, and to just ask if they want to be. Even just ask the question, because a lot of times the answer is yes.
That's right, and I think there has to be an element of a vibe that's involved, right? And I think about our community in this way a lot. That if our community doesn't have a sense of vibe or a vibrant component to it, we're just not going to be engaged. We're going to go find something else to be involved. And sometimes that's another community, sometimes a different group. And I think that can be said about every community organization that's trying to find its way. Sometimes they've lost that that very simple way to create an atmosphere where it's fun, where it's creative, where it's energetic. And I think the Youth Council is a shining example of that. When I go to the meetings, I generally leave more inspired and reminded of why I do my job, because believe me, in local government, it can be very challenging to remind myself why I continue to do this. But I don't need to think that far ahead or go that far and be reminded of that, especially when you've got the community's future and the future leaders, hopefully, involved in such a way.
And that vibe that you were talking about is a really important point, because we've all been through towns that are devastated. Yeah. We've been through towns where you're going down the main road of that town and there's just nothing but businesses closed down and that kind of thing. Right. More than not, people are not moving into that area. They're moving out of that area. Yeah. So when we talk about things like the Riverfront project, the what's going on at the Y right now, all these things, and when people ask, well, how does that create? What does that do? What does this do? I'll tell you what it does. It makes that vibe that you're talking about. Right. It makes it that much more inviting and that much more to people who aren't in this area, who are visiting or what, be like, this is a nice town. I like this. That's right. It's not like the other the towns I've gone through to get here or anything where they're closed down and all these different things. There's a good vibe to it. That's right. And people want to be a part of that. Just like with people in general, you want to be around people that have a good vibe to them. You want to be around in a city that has a good vibe to it. We have a short break to take, and we'll be back with more with the mayor and the youth council, Allison and Claire, and our friends from the Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Did I forget anybody? Did I get everybody?
You did.
We'll be back with more right here on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR.
I'm so glad we left that stupid party.
No joke.
Hey, baby, are you an overdue library book? Because you got fine written all over you.
Oh, barf. What about that girl with the hoop earrings?
Ridiculous. When she was dancing...
Megan, look out! Look out!
Oh, my God, Becky. Becky, are you okay?
My arm. I think it's broken.
Can you bend it?
It's already bent in the wrong direction.
I can't believe this. I'm so sorry. I only had a few drinks. I was just buzzed.
Really? Just buzzed?
Yeah, I swear.
Well, in that case, my arm is fine. Ah, that's better.
You're really okay? You're serious, Becky?
No, genius. I'm not serious. Ow! My arm, it hurts.
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Together, we can turn a stairwell into an ER at a moment's notice. Together, we can turn a rescue ship for refugees into a maternity ward. Together, we can vaccinate 710,000 people in just 11 days. Together, we are Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders goes where others don't to provide life-saving medical care. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
Here's your forecast from the Weather Eye Weather Center.
Partly sunny skies this afternoon with a high near 81. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. Tomorrow, cloudy with showers and thunderstorms and a high near 76. Tomorrow night, scattered showers and thunderstorms and a low around 63. Friday, partly sunny with scattered showers and thunderstorms and a high near 79. Friday night, scattered showers and thunderstorms, a low around 65. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Chipman.
Thank you very much, Emily. Appreciate it. It is 70 in Stevens Point and Marshfield, 67 in Wausau, and 70 here in Wisconsin Rapids, where we have Morning Magazine. We're joined by Mayor Zach Vruwink, along with the Youth Council. We have Allison and Claire with us, and our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Mayor, I'd like to, real quick, before we let you go today, ask you about some of the things that went over yesterday, including your public safety. You had a couple things about public safety come up?
Yeah, the first of which is actually probably talked about on other radio programs with the county board chair, maybe the Wood County sheriff, but the city is going to be adding a number of safety measures at its city buildings. Right now, I hate to admit, but there is really a lack of surveillance, and door security is an issue, or door access is an issue. Having gone to many of the school buildings throughout my time, it's a very different world walking into a schoolhouse than it is a city hall. Anybody can walk into City Hall, just like the courthouse buildings and that. So we're going to be taking some measures, security measures at City Hall and some of the other city buildings like the city garage and such. So that was the first area of mention in the public safety area. And then the other is our fire stations. Our fire stations are old. The West Side Fire Station is much older than the East, but they were built during a time when we had just male firefighters and EMS service workers. So we're now entering a time where there's more interest from females, and so we're going to be undertaking a study basically to explore how we're going to make our fire stations gender friendly for other genders other than males to be serving in our fire department or in EMS services. So it's an exciting time. Surprised we haven't been here before.
Yeah.
We finally hired our first female firefighter about a little over a year ago now, and she's still with the city, and so we need to make our fire stations gender friendly for others than just males that are wishing to serve our
Talked
city.
with Congressman Kind about this and about the need in especially rural areas to have more firefighters.
Yeah.
And if we can open that up to not just men, which is the case, all the more important, the more reason we can get more people in to do this. We're talking about an incredibly important part of our community that needs to be taken care of. And so that's great. That's good to hear.
Well,
and
recruitment's been a challenge, right?
It is, yeah.
We have eligibility lists that are very short, and so we have to do everything we can to be an attractive place to work. And so in this case, is just another step in that direction.
And when it comes to the city hall being, talking with Sheriff Becker about this, it is something that is really important to everybody.
Right.
I love the fact that that our city is like this with a lot of things where we're ahead of it. So many people wait for a tragedy to happen before they do something. That's right. We have a spare tire in our back car. We hope we never use it, but we have that spare tire there, and it's nice. This is that spare tire. This is. We'll take care of this. Hopefully, it never even is an issue, and nothing ever comes up.
Yep.
But it is. You don't want to wait until something bad happens and then do something.
That's right.
So many communities, so many areas do that. It's great to see that initiative and that getting that done.
Yeah, being proactive. It's not inexpensive, believe me.
Yeah,
We're going to be using quite a bit of our City Hall replacement accounts, which we save money annually set aside for improvements to City Hall and other city buildings. And so we're going to be tapping that fund for this purpose. But the other benefit to the community is right now, I don't believe we have a safe internet exchange site in the city. So if folks are buying and selling online, generally got to meet in a location to exchange those goods, and so we're going to be adding a space at City Hall for folks to exchange those goods safely with some surveillance. So
That's a really good point.
Not risking any personal safety in those situations.
I hadn't even thought of that, but that's an incredibly good point, and more people are doing that. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a really good thing for that too. Didn't even think about that part.
Yeah.
So with the airport right now, I know that there's a lot of things been going on over there. We've only got a couple minutes here, of course, but I did want to be able to touch on it because a number of listeners have asked, how things are going over there. And we've got so much expansion going on in different areas, not just here, but in Rome and that. Right. So people have been curious about it. Things going well over there?
They are, and we had another great season. We're not over yet. Into October is when we'll kind of wrap up the busy season, at least now at the airport. But the airport commission has pursued or has asked the city to annex a portion of airport property for the construction of a hangar to service it with city utilities. Fire suppression is an issue. If you build large buildings, and the hangar that the airport commission is planning to construct is very large and will require fire suppression. So the commission's asking the city to accept it into the city for city utilities, and I sure hope the city council is going to do that because it's about a $2 million investment that city taxpayers and local taxpayers aren't going to have to foot any of the bill for. So that's another aspect of the airport development. Otherwise, all the projects are going well, and things had another great year out at the airport.
Fantastic, and it's really good to hear, and thanks for the update there. Ladies, Allison, Claire, would you guys mind just one more time kind of giving us how people can apply for the Youth Council, and when is the expiration date? When does that stop that you can apply? Is it the end of September, you said?
Yes, so the application is on the city website, I believe. So it's going to be on the city website. You're going to have to get some reference letters from teachers or community members to fill those out, which isn't difficult. And then you can email it to the city, or you can mail it to the city hall.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you both for coming in today again. I can't imagine how hard it was to leave school to come here today and hang out with us, but we do appreciate it. And more importantly, good on you for joining the Youth Council and the work that you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And a big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, Kevin and Joe. Good to meet you, Joe. And Mayor, always good talking with you, sir.
Likewise, James, and thanks to our listeners.
Yeah, thank you guys out there for our best listeners in radio. Be sure to join us tomorrow with more Morning Magazine. We'll visit Rome in part 1, and in part 2 have a UW Extension Wood County update with Nancy Turk, right here on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR.